Hello and welcome to this Mintec catch-up video. I'm Kyle Holland, a price analyst at Mintec, covering oilseeds and grains. So yesterday I attended a conference, virtually of course, due to COVID. It was the H2B Oilseeds and Grains Conference. Now I think some excellent points were raised and I think some really interesting discussion can happen around that, so hence the video. The first part was kind of split nicely into three sections with more kind of global facing outlook. So political and kind of economic instability within the market. So main focus of this was almost around Biden and Trump. So as we know, when an election happens, which is happening fairly soon in November, we see kind of a definite reaction from the markets. Could go down, could go up, but instability scares traders and scares people in the marketplace, simply because it's more of an unknown factor. I think moving forward, this is definitely something to keep an eye on. It, again, could impact either way, but certainly something to watch and certainly a flashpoint potentially with things moving forward. Also, I think a key one is obviously COVID. As we know, kind of all over the global economy, certainly impacting tons of major players in the grains and oilseed sector. So again, it's a very, very interesting one. We see demand dropping for some products, for example, ethanol, which was used by HDB is quite a good example. We saw ethanol virtually dive off a cliff in terms of demand. It has slightly gone back up, but certainly not to levels pre-COVID. The USDA kind of prediction 130 million metric tons will be used fairly soon, but I think that's slightly optimistic, and I think the potential is demand could stay a little bit down. Also important in kind of the instability I just mentioned is the kind of longer funds that we see people getting involved into. So normally we'd see people investing in kind of more traditional risk commodities, and that'd be where the main focus is. But now, at the moment, particularly on New York Stock Exchange, we see people investing in kind of a basket of ag commodities. Now, this is very interesting because the Dow Jones is slightly creeping up, certainly in the past few months. Again, slightly not at the levels perhaps we saw before, but certainly it is climbing in certain scenarios. So I think the risk here is that people ditch the basket of currency they've been investing in, particularly the ag ones, and perhaps go back to more traditional things, particularly on the Dow. So I think it's a very, very precarious situation. I think certainly something to watch. I think, again, a very important one is weather. As you all know, La Nina is certainly in full effect, massively impacting many countries, particularly across the Black Sea, in the more Eurozone. Although Russia, as forecasts mentioned, perhaps getting a bit more rain, so that could be potentially quite good. But again, it's very much down to in the lap of the gods almost. We see extreme dryness in Brazil and Argentina. Now, contacts in the industry that speak to me on a regular basis say they haven't yet planted their soybeans. I think the forecast is looking fairly favourable for last time I checked. I think some decent weather will be moving in, potential rains as well. So perhaps they'll look to plant fairly soon. I'm not too sure at the moment. It just depends on the weather, naturally. Again, Argentina, another South American country, very, very dry in areas. It's becoming a real worry. I think it's certainly something to watch going forward. There is still time for planting, certainly. I think that things moving forward, we'll know more as time goes on. Maybe more rains will come and kind of ease those pressures. But a difficult situation, certainly, all around, really. Then kind of HDB conference moved more on to the UK outlook. So we looked at kind of wheat and the situation in the UK. So the UK kind of very, very down on wheat. People in the industry were telling me roughly 10 million metric tons will be produced, provisionally of course, because we're still kind of in the lap of that at the moment. But it's a low crop for the UK. I mean, the lowest in over 30 years, certainly. And also the quality, it doesn't appear to be very good. Reports roughly suggest that only 30% are reaching the kind of grade 1, group 1 specification, which is quite down, really. So now we've got a smaller crop, we've got a crop that's not as good quality. Naturally, this leads us into imports. The UK is certainly going to have to import wheat from our partners, probably in the EU. Now, the big worry of this is Brexit. Will there be tariffs? We don't know yet. How will this work if we don't strike a deal? It's very, very interesting moving forward how the UK might cope with this and how the Eurozone reacts as well, of course. Again, we can't really mention the UK and Europe without mentioning oilseed rape. Down again in the UK, it looks like it's a very, very difficult situation all across the Eurozone, really. Acreage was almost at a 10-year low, slightly more than 10 years. It's since the ban on neonicotinoids in 2018, things have been very, very difficult. The cost ratio has certainly gone up for many people. And many people I talk to in the industry, particularly in the UK, this is their last season of planting OSR. They're looking at kind of moving away from the crop simply because it's not really feasible for them anymore. Some suggestions they've mentioned to me is perhaps linseed, but I think they'll have to assess that as they go forward. Other than that, I think the whole situation with COVID again could affect the UK quite drastically. Barley is one of the ones that's been mentioned quite significantly. If the UK kind of enters almost a full lockdown, and we've seen some of those things happen in the UK quite recently, a full lockdown would impact demand on a lot of these commodities. So it's a very, very tumultuous time going forward, and I think that things will be quite difficult for the oilseeds and grains market, and I think a lot of volatility is to be expected moving forward from the reasons mentioned. That kind of covers what mostly was mentioned at the HTB conference. If you want to reach out to me, I'm always happy to chat. You can catch me on Twitter at Kyle H Analyst, or alternatively at pricing@mintecglobal.com. Always happy to chat, always happy to discuss things. If you agree, if you don't agree, always happy to have a conversation about those things. And yeah, thank you very much for joining in.